Hello, welcome to a summary of the BBC World News with me, Martine Dennis. These are our top stories this morning. International appeals to Algeria to ensure the safety of the hostages still being held by Islamist militants.
When I spoke with the Prime Minister again this morning, I urged the utmost care be taken in the protection of the hostages.
Cycling cheat Lance Armstrong has criticised his lifetime ban from sport for doping.
I deserve to be punished. I'm not sure that I deserve a death penalty.
Two more hostages have been released on the fourth day of the crisis at a gas facility in Algeria. Norwegian energy company Statoil, which jointly operates the site, says two of its employees were brought to safety overnight. Now, the attack began on Wednesday when Islamic militants ambushed two buses carrying workers to an airfield. It's thought that more than 20 foreigners are still unaccounted for.
Out of danger, 5 workers caught up in the Algerian hostage crisis return home to Norway. They're the lucky ones. A number of Norwegians remain unaccounted for, as are around 10 British nationals. As in a host of other countries, their families face an anxious wait for news. Algerian workers spared by the kidnappers have also been travelling home and giving an insight into the possible motives of the gunmen.
They
attacked the living quarters and the factory as well. There were two groups. One group returned to the factory and the other returned to the living quarters. Their goal was foreign hostages.
I told them I was an Algerian Muslim and they said, OK, don't be scared. We haven't come for you. We've come to exterminate the Crusaders.
Exactly what's happening now at the remote gas facility in the east of the country is far from clear. The Algerian authorities are releasing few details of the ongoing operation to free the remaining hostages. 12 Algerian and foreign workers are reported to have died in this incident. The US State Department has named one as an American, Frederick Bataccio. Algeria is coming under increasing pressure to ensure the safety of the remaining captives.
I urged the utmost care be taken in the protection of the hostages, Algerian and expatriate foreign hostages. This is an extremely difficult and dangerous situation.
For those workers who've escaped this unfolding nightmare in the desert, the release of their colleagues can't come soon enough. James Kelly, BBC News.
Well, Phil Campbell has worked in British Special Forces, the SAS, and is now a security advisor in parts of Africa. And I asked him earlier what he made of the group that has taken the hostages.
They've definitely lined their ducks up before this one, for sure. I mean, they're linked to Al-Qaeda, so we believe. So they'll have backing and funding and that sort of thing, and they'll be organised. They deserve the same respect as anybody else in terms of military.
What's your assessment then of the way the government has handled it so far? Because many people, certainly here in the UK, were pretty aghast at the government going in so rapidly.
I think we're a bit quick to judge, to be honest, because, like I say, we don't know what drove those decisions on the ground. And if they'd have rocked up there and there was something severely going wrong, then they've done the right thing. They've got in there and they've tried to grip it from the onset. So I think you're a bit harsh to say that the Algerian government have got this completely wrong until the dust has settled and we can pick through the pieces properly.
Tell us about the kind of conditions, the kind of suffering that the hostages are likely to be enduring now.
They're not going to be having the best of rides, to be honest, but, you know, at the same time, we don't know exactly how they're being treated. So it's a bit scaremongering for the families to go into the details of how hideous it can be, but, you know, I just hope that they are being dealt with, you know, and contained, rather than being sort of like put under too much pressure. And
what should strategy be now in order to get as many of those hostages out with the minimal loss of life?
Well, hopefully they'll negotiate now, and they'll negotiate in such a way that they can reach a peaceful resolution to this, because, you know, obviously we don't want to see any more bloodshed over this.
So what do you think might have gone wrong in the first instance? Because we were hearing that there was pretty strict, quite tight security around, as I said before, this vast plant. What's gone wrong?
Dropped the ball, haven't they? I would have thought. You know, it's obvious that something's gone wrong, because they were saying there's 25,000 troops in the area and we shouldn't really worry. Well, we haven't worried. You've taken a bus and you've managed to get into a compound, so something's gone wrong, isn't it? You know, and again, that'll be analysed once the dust settles, isn't it?
That was Phil Campbell, a former SAS soldier who knows about conditions in the desert. Now, the conflict in Mali against Islamist rebels is top of the agenda among West African leaders who just started their meeting in Ivory Coast's main city, Abidjan. They're going to be discussing how best to support French and Malian soldiers who are already in action on the ground. We can talk to our correspondent, Thomas Fessy, who's there in Abidjan. And Thomas, what are we expecting from this meeting?
Well, African leaders who've just started their meeting here are expected to hash out the details of a troop deployment to come in support of the French troops that are already on the ground in Mali. We know that a few dozens of Togolese troops have already deployed to Mali, that Nigerian troops have started to deploy as well, but it's not entirely clear when the other ones from Senegal, from Niger, from Burkina Faso will deploy either in the next 10 days, within the next 2 weeks, or later on. So we are expecting the African leaders to give more details on this deployment, which is obviously a difficult one because this is a fast-track deployment of a plan that was drawn for the end of the year. So logistically speaking, there's a lot of issues in how to better achieve this deployment of troops in Mali.
And Thomas, very briefly, if you can, how far, if at all, are events in Algeria overshadowing what's taking place in Abidjan?
I think that Algeria clearly highlights the fact that these Islamist militants can strike anywhere in the region, and some of the African leaders have already raised the concern that regional capitals such as Dakar or Abidjan, for example, especially where a lot of French citizens are living, could be the stage of a terrorist attack in the coming weeks, and that security needed to be stepped up. Obviously, these countries don't have the sort of security plans to prevent these kind of attacks. So they may discuss that today, but I think that the deployment of troops in Mali will top the agenda
Okay,
today.
Thomas, sorry, we have to leave it there. We are really running up against the clock. But thank you very much, Thomas Fessy, our correspondent there, live in Abidjan. Some other stories quickly now. And rebels from northern Burma say fighting in the region is continuing despite the government's promise of a ceasefire. There appears, though, to be an uneasy calm in some northern parts of the country, recently shaken by an army offensive against ethnic minority rebels. However, rebel fighters in the stronghold of Laiza, that's in Kachin State, say they're still fearful of attack, and there have been reports of sporadic military action elsewhere in the state. Aviation investigators in Japan say it's likely that overcharging caused batteries on 2 Boeing 787 Dreamliners to burn. The planes have been taken out of service worldwide while authorities carry out a series of tests. Now, despite his fall from grace, the former professional cyclist Lance Armstrong says he'd like to compete again. The cyclist admitted using performance-enhancing drugs to win the Tour de France 7 times. All of this in an interview with Oprah Winfrey. Now, after retiring in 2011, Armstrong returned to triathlons, but in the interview, he says he's desperate to cycle professionally.
If you're asking me, do I want to compete again? The answer is hell yes. I'm a competitor. It's what I've done my whole life. I love to train. I love to race. I love to toe the line. If I was ever, and I don't expect it to happen.
Right, there's a row in Canada over the kind of maple leaf that's featuring on the country's new plastic banknotes. Now, Canadians, it seems, can be pretty precious about their maple leaves, and they're quite miffed that the new notes have a Norwegian variety rather than a homegrown one. Now, you and I might not be able to spot the difference, but according to some Canadian botanists, the maple on this note is not native to the country, but is in fact a Norwegian maple, imported from Europe. How dreadful. That's all from the BBC World Newsroom for now.